Welcome to my review of Everybody Wants Some, directed by Richard Linklater. A coming-of-age comedy that centers on a Texan college freshman and baseball player who indulges in the college experience by taking part in 3 straight nights of partying with his fellow teammates before beginning the fall semester of 1980. So in case you do not already know, Everybody Wants Some is a spiritual successor to Dazed and Confused, the film that came out in 1993, and I very much like Dazed and Confused. I would even say that it's probably my favorite Linklater film. And Richard Linklater is a phenomenal filmmaker, and I do not say that lightly, and he's a very eclectic one at that. He's a filmmaker who can do movies like Boyhood, the Before trilogy, then turn around and do movies in the realm of Bernie and School of Rock, and they're all fantastic for what they are. As for Everybody Wants Some, I went into this film with some pretty high expectations, one of which being that I am a fan of Dazed and Confused, and 2, I have pretty much loved everything that Richard Linklater has released since 2011. So I suppose the question is, do I think this film lives up to Dazed and Confused? Do I think it's as good as Dazed and Confused? And the simple, short answer would be no, I don't think it does. Though that's not to say that I think the movie is bad. I actually think it's really good. It just falls a little short of being something great though. However, I want to begin with what I did like about this movie, and there's a lot to like about this movie, one of which being these characters. Now, they're all a bunch of baseball players, jocks, and they're all douchebags. But they're likable douchebags, and they're not stereotypical either, and I'm going to use this word again, but they're quite eclectic. Every one of these guys has his own personality, and they just don't exclusively hang with other jocks. No, they hang out with other types as well. One night they're partying at a disco club, the next they're at a country bar, then the next they're hanging out with a bunch of metalheads at a metal concert, and they even hang out with the art nerds. So at night, they're out partying, looking to get laid, but during the day, they're just hanging out, shooting the shit in the dorm, maybe smoking a little bit of weed. They might go to the arcade and play some games, and at the most, they might practice a little bit of baseball. And I gotta say, watching their camaraderie, watching them shoot the shit, watching them party, watching them rap along to Rapper's Delight while they're in a car, it's a lot of fun for the first hour. After that, it's like, okay, come on. What else do you have going on here? Now, the movie does have laughs, and the movie does offer something philosophical, most notably being that of young men being brought to college on a sports scholarship, thinking that they're going to be something, when in fact, maybe 1 or 2 out of the entire team are actually going to go pro. And then there's also the theme of not wanting to grow out of adolescence. The problem with the thematical elements here is that it really doesn't show up, or at least it doesn't become very much apparent until like the last 30 to 20 minutes of the film. This movie is 10 minutes short of being 2 hours, yet it feels like it's 3. And there's a whole midsection here that I really do believe could have been a lot shorter. The bulk of this movie is guys just hanging out and partying, which sounds like fun for like the first hour, or no, I would actually say the first 40 minutes. And as much as I like these characters on a surface level, it never really felt like it descended into anything beyond that. That said, here comes the inevitable. Needless to say, I don't think the characters are as nearly as memorable as the characters in Dazed and Confused. And what's interesting is that Linklater even attempted to replicate the Matthew McConaughey character from Dazed and Confused, at least in terms of likeness. I mean, look at this guy. Tell me he doesn't look just like Matthew McConaughey, but if Matthew McConaughey were on hardcore drugs. Another point that I want to make is that Everybody Wants Some has a very meandering structure, and that's not too unlike Dazed and Confused. However, what I can say about Dazed and Confused and what I can't say about Everybody Wants Some is that Dazed and Confused, the characters actually have a definitive goal. Yes, it does follow a bunch of high school kids driving around town. However, they're not wandering aimlessly. They are looking for a party to go to. While this film, it's just a bunch of random partying. There really isn't an end goal here. Of course, life doesn't play out that way, and I understand that Linklater was trying to go for something more naturalistic, something in the realm of Before Midnight or Boyhood. And I have absolutely no problem watching a film that has a meandering plot structure, or watching a film most definitely that comes off as naturalistic, because that's something that's very praiseworthy. The only thing here is that it doesn't really do that, because there are things that kind of shatter that. One character in particular, and there's some other instances as well in the film. Going this route, it really does make the film seem longer, because I kept guessing to myself, when the hell is this film going to end? And of course, the characters, they're not doing something that hasn't been seen done a billion times before. Neither is the film really saying anything all that profound until like the last 20 to 30 minutes. As much as I hate to keep bringing up Dazed and Confused, though I think it is kind of fair because this is Richard Linklater and this is a spiritual successor to Dazed and Confused. Not only did Dazed and Confused have more memorable characters characters and energy, but it had a shit ton of memorable moments and quotes. There's nothing in this film that quite ranks up there with Matthew McConaughey standing outside the hangout spot delivering that famous line, "That's the thing I like about high school girls, I get older, they stay the same age," and then saying, all right. Or that one line that's said in the woods with that one guy who says, "I've come here to do two things tonight, kick some ass and drink some beer, and it looks like we're almost all out of beer." That's one of my favorite lines. With that said, I can't necessarily fault the film for that, though it is something that was indeed on my mind, so I'd figured I'd mention that. And that's not to say that there aren't any memorable pieces of dialogue or memorable scenes in the film. There's one scene in particular featuring the very fascinating Wyatt Russell character taking a huge bong hit just before giving a hippie lecture on how fucked up mass media is. But that shit had me tripping out. I mean, I don't know what the hell was going on, but it did. And there's nothing psychedelic about it. As for my last complaint before I give my rating, one thing that completely baffled me as I was watching this film is the cast. As great as they are, because there's really no weak performance here, all these guys, except for maybe 4, they look way too freaking old to be portraying 19 to 22-year-olds. I mean, there's one guy in this movie, he looks like he's 35. Granted, he's like 27. He looks older than what he actually is. But man, it took me out of the film so hardcore, I'm not even playing. The actor I'm referring to is Glenn Powell, who you may have seen in The Dark Knight Rises. He's the guy at the stock exchange that got his ass completely handed to him by Bane. Now, I don't want anybody to misinterpret me. He's really, really good in this movie. However, he doesn't in the slightest look like he's 22. He looks like he's 30 to 35. And then there's Austin Emilio, who plays heroin Matthew McConaughey, who looks older than that. It's like, really, I get it, you want great actors, but that illusion, I can't buy it. Overall, Everybody Wants Some is a film that I do believe would have worked better if it were cut down to 1:30 versus 1:50 something. There are some things to take from this film. There is some fun to be had. So I'm going to give Everybody Wants Some a 3.5 out of 5. If you are somebody who has seen Everybody Wants Some, then do let me know your thoughts on it. And as always, I'm Colin Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.